The Emperor of Septimont, Augusta, has finally arrived in the first half of version 2.6 with one of the most electrifying and jaw-dropping kits in gacha history, with the damage output and synergies to bring Electro back into the meta with her release. She's got a kit that appears incredibly complex at first glance, with plenty of unique attacks and mechanics we've never seen before in-game, but in reality, she's much simpler in practice. As an Electro, heavy attack damage-focused character that synergizes with units that can directly buff her damage output, characters like Mortefi, Shorekeeper, and VERINA can get a ton of mileage out of her kit, but she still has the flexibility with a lot of effort to perform in other, spicier lineups. This also makes her one of the best free-to-play units in the game. With that, welcome to our full-scope, comprehensive guide to Augusta, the newest addition to Wuthering Waves, and I'm here to break down everything when it comes to how she works, what her best equipment will be, and the steps you need to take across her team building and rotations to make the most out of her insane damage and, oddly enough, slight buffing potential. As always, if you're enjoying this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Augusta, with her baseline kit, focuses on the activation of her enhanced resonance liberation to stop time, repeatedly slash enemies, and then deliver a massive nuke of damage. And nearly every part of her kit works towards generating the resources required to activate these moves. Her normal attack and first resource, Prowess, is the easiest place to begin. Augusta's basic attack consists of 4 hits, nothing too crazy here. Her heavy attack, Steel Clash, consumes stamina to attack a target and also advances her basic attack chain to its second stage. Her mid-air attack is simply a plunge. Her resonance skill, Warrior's Blade, hits the enemy 3 times. All of these attacks generate a resource called Prowess, which, when full, allows Augusta to use enhanced heavy attacks through a variety of different inputs. An intro skill will also fully fill up this Prowess meter. Her first heavy attack is Thunder Roar Backstep, which is triggered by holding the attack button on the ground. Releasing the attack button or pressing again will trigger Thunder Roar Spin Slash, a follow-up attack. Augusta's dodge counter is also replaced with Steel Clash, a heavy attack when at full prowess. Augusta can also jump while prowess is full to use Thunder Roar Uppercut. She can also use this attack as a direct follow-up to her regular resonance skill, Warrior's Blade, or her enhanced dodge counter. Building up and spending this prowess on heavy attacks is a great way to deal damage, but it also builds up a secondary resource in her kit, Ascendancy. This resource has up to 100 points, and when filled, greatly enhances Augusta's resonance skill and summons her Griffrex to aid her in combat through her Undying Sunlight attack chain. The first attack, Strike, charges towards an enemy, and by pressing the attacker skill button, you can follow up with Leap, which launches both you and the target into the air. Another input will trigger Plunge, the only attack in the chain that deals heavy attack damage. Augusta can also begin this attack chain by using a resonance skill after a dodge on the ground or even in the air. Having full ascendancy and full prowess also grants Augusta a further enhanced dodge counter, replacing Steel Clash with Thunder Roar Backstep, allowing for even more combo potential. Augusta builds up ascendancy through normal attacks, her intro skill, baseline resonance skill, and her baseline resonance liberation. Yes, Augusta has 2 ultimates. Her first ultimate is performed by pressing and releasing the liberation button, and slashes enemies for heavy attack damage. Her second ultimate can only be triggered when she has 2 stacks of Majesty, and she can only build up Majesty in 3 ways. The first is using the final hit of her Ascendancy attack chain. The second is when Augusta uses her outro skill, which grants a 15% damage amp to the incoming resonator that expires on swap, and that resonator uses an outro skill before the buff expires, and the third is simply being out of combat for 4 seconds via one of her inherent skills, capped at 1 Majesty stack. Using an outro skill or staying out of combat also grants her a buff called Crown of Wills that grants 15% electro damage and expires following the use of her second liberation. When Augusta activates her second liberation, Sublime as the Sun, she generates the Ruler's Realm and stops time for 7 seconds and also prevents the ability to swap out. Her attack is replaced with Sunborn, which can be cast up to 9 times during her time stop, and when all 9 attacks are used, the 7-second timer ends, or Augusta manually activates her liberation again, she attacks with Everbite Protector and loses the Crown of Wills buff. Her Ruler's Realm persists for 30 seconds after activation and grants teammates a small shield whenever they use an intro skill. This is a pretty cool move. When factoring in all of Augusta's abilities, resources, and interactions with each other, she has a surprisingly simple playstyle that involves introing in with the buff of a sub DPS, generating a full bar of ascendancy through the use of her baseline abilities and prowess before activating her enhanced liberation, stopping time, and slashing enemies before ending with her cinematic finishing move and then outro skilling to another teammate to provide them a small sustain boost through her shielding and minor amplification buff to all damage types. When that incoming unit uses their outro skill, they'll generate a Majesty and Crown of Will stack for Augusta, so she has no issues at all using her full combo during the first team's rotation, thanks to the help of her second inherent skill, Blazing Valor. Her first inherent skill, on the other hand, simply grants her a small shield every time she deals damage for 5 seconds, which can refresh every half second but isn't stackable. This isn't a huge overall survivability boost, but it enables the use of certain weapons and Sonata set effects. Augusta's a character that can appear quite complex given her wordy skill descriptions, but becomes much simpler to understand when you prioritize resources like Ascendancy and Majesty to trigger the most damaging parts of her kit. And her damage output is absolutely fantastic when you're able to pair her with outro skill amplifiers like Mortefi to greatly boost her heavy attack damage output, but she can also work with electro damage amplifiers like YINLIN, albeit to less of an effective degree. It's clear from taking a look at some of the unreleased kits in-game, however, that she has a potential best-in-slot teammate coming very soon. When it comes to actually building Augusta, starting off with her skill priority, you'll want to max out her Liberation, then her Forte Circuit as their biggest sources of damage. Her Resonant skill and Normal Attack are next, as they're frequently used across her rotation, but don't scale as well. Her Intro skill is the lowest priority on the list, and should be kept at a low level if you're looking to conserve resources like weekly boss bats. Now, let's talk about Augusta's weapons. And it's clear she has some incredible options based off the existing Broadblade roster. Here's what the calculations are looking like using Lustrous Razor, the standard 5-star, as the baseline. Credits to Pridewind. Let's explain these results, starting off with her signature, Thunderflare Dominion. This weapon provides a massive attack main stat, but a depressingly low critical rate stat, an attack bonus, and a split weapon effect that gives a minor boost to heavy attack damage, but a stacking defense ignore every time the user generates a shield. And, well, Augusta generates shields every half second. This weapon is tailor-made for Augusta and greatly boosts her damage potential through its combo of effects. The next best option is Gion's signature, Verdant Summit. This weapon provides a more regular base attack and critical damage main stat, a 12% attribute damage effect, and a 2-stack buff to heavy attack damage generated from using an intro skill or a liberation. And Augusta is easily able to maintain full uptime on this effect since, well, she has 2 liberations. This weapon actually provides more heavy attack damage than Augusta's signature, but lacks its defense ignore ability, making it a fantastic option that greatly diminishes the value of Augusta's signature if you have it. The third option is Jinxi's signature, Age of Harvest. This weapon provides near identical stats to Gion's signature, but with more of an emphasis on critical rate and resonant skill damage. While Augusta's main damage type is heavy, she still deals a decent amount of skill damage across her rotation, making it another solid option. Wildfire Mark is another possible choice, but unfortunately, Augusta deals close to 0 liberation damage across her rotation, making it essentially a crit damage and attack stat stick that can still perform, but falls behind its 5-star competitors. The last 5-star option is Lustrous Razor, the standard weapon, and unfortunately, this thing is not that great on Augusta given its big focus on attack through its main stat, ER bonus effect, which Augusta still needs, and buffs to liberation damage. It's usable, but it's not that great. When it comes to 4-star options, Augusta has a few that shine. Unfortunately, they're mostly obtained through paid options like the Battle Pass. Her best in slot 4-star is part of the new Hunter's Growl BP weapon series, and grants a great boost to attack and heavy attack damage whenever a liberation is used. Unfortunately, it has rather poor base attack, which can make scaling from other sources much lower than with a 5-star. Her next best option is Autumn Trace, the baseline BP weapon, that grants a stacking attack buff whenever a basic or heavy attack is used. Unfortunately, this takes a while to build up and can be at low stacks for some of Augusta's most damaging abilities, a problem that other BP weapons don't have. Her other 4-star options are rather mediocre, so mediocre to the point where it's likely better to simply use the standard 5-star Broadblade instead rather than waste the resources to level up to 90. So avoid weapons like Helios Cleaver and such. Now it's time to move on to Augusta's Echoes, and she has a very clear best in slot with a 3-piece Crown of Valor set. This set gives a stacking buff of 6% attack and 4% critical damage every time the wielder obtains a shield with 5 max stacks, and Augusta maintains perfect uptime on this set throughout her rotation. You'll want to combine this 3-piece set with a 2-piece effect from Void Thunder, which grants 10% electro damage, or Lingering Tunes for 10% attack, meaning previously built units like Zhang Liao can easily contribute to Augusta's build. However, if you're trying to get Augusta up and running as soon as possible, it's perfectly fine to throw her on a 5-piece Void Thunder set with the Tempest Mephis Echo. When it comes to her Echo main stats, she'll have identical requirements across both sets. You'll want a crit 4 cost, 2 electro 3 costs, and 2 attack 1 costs. If Augusta has her signature, it's probably still recommended to run critical rate on her 4 cost, simply due to the fact that her weapon gives only 12.1%, which is tiny. When it comes to substats, you'll prioritize crit rate, crit damage, ER up to 120%, heavy attack damage, and attack percentage rolls. She could benefit a decent bit from resonant skill damage rolls, but don't go looking for these. Other damage types like basic or liberation are really bad. The last area of investment when it comes to Augusta involves your wallet or a lot of saved astrite. It's her sequence nodes. Big thanks to Pridewind for calculating the damage increase per node. The first sequence node buffs Crown of Wills to additionally increase her crit damage by 15% and also increases her max maximum number of stacks to 2. Using an intro skill is also going to provide her one of these stacks, and she also gains interruption resistance across her entire enhanced resonance skill attack chain. Her second node grants a 20% crit rate boost to each Crown of Will stack and also converts overcapped crit rate to crit damage at a 1-to-2 rate. Her third increases the damage multipliers across all of her prowess heavy attacks, her enhanced resonance skill, and her liberations by 25%. The fourth node causes her intro skill to increase the attack of the entire team by 20% for 30 seconds, and her fifth node simply increases her inherent skill shield by 50%. And her sixth node, the big one, increases her maximum Crown of Will stack to 4 and also gives her an additional crit rate conversion to crit damage once she reaches over 150% crit rate, up to 50%, and also causes her enhanced heavy attacks to generate 2 Crown of Wills every second. It also triggers Thunder Rage whenever these attacks are used. That deals a small amount of heavy attack damage. Now that we've covered Augusta's build, let's get into some of her teams and optimal rotations. And unfortunately, she only has a few teams available to her on release for her hypercarry playstyle. But the good news is that she works very well with them. Her best partners will be units like Mortefi, YINLIN, Shorekeeper, and VERINA, making her one of the most free-to-play friendly units in the game, at least in my opinion. Augusta's best team on release will feature Augusta as the DPS, Mortefi as the sub-DPS for his 38% heavy attack amp, and VERINA or Shorekeeper as the support. We'll use Shorekeeper for this example. To start off this rotation, you'll open up with 3 basic attacks on Shorekeeper and cancel the animation of her third attack with her skill. Then you'll fill up the rest of her forte circuit, use a heavy attack, and then follow up with more basics until you're nearly capped on Concerto. From there, you'll use your Liberation, Echo skill, and then outro to Mortefi. Mortefi will then Resonance skill, Enhance Resonance skill, and then fire off 4 basic attacks before using another Enhanced Resonance skill. Then he'll Liberation, Echo skill, and then outro to Augusta. Augusta will then intro in, use an enhanced heavy attack, and then its follow-up, and then Resonance skill, and then trigger another enhanced heavy attack in its follow-up before using her first Liberation. You'll then trigger all 3 attacks in her enhanced Resonance skill attack chain, then follow up with her enhanced Liberation, slashing 9 times before using your finishing move, Echo skill, and then swapping back to Shorekeeper. If you're using this team with VERINA, open up on a unit like Augusta or Mortefi, and then swap to VERINA. Basic attacking until you generate a forte circuit charge, then skill, Liberation, and then jump into the air and attack until her Concerto is filled, before Echo skilling and swapping to Mortefi to continue the baseline rotation. You can speed up the rotation in this team with Shorekeeper by continually swapping between Shorekeeper and Mortefi while building up Concerto. But this can only be done on the first rotation, as Augusta's outro skill, which grants her the majesty needed to use her Liberation, will be lost if Shorekeeper or VERINA ever swap while building up their Concerto. This unfortunately means that this team is significantly worse with VERINA, since her intro skill is legitimately awful with how long it takes, but it has to be used to maintain majesty uptime. Another team that works with Augusta is by substituting Mortefi for YINLIN. YINLIN offers higher personal damage, especially when equipped with her signature, but sacrifices buffing potential for Augusta with only 20% Electro Amp on her outro. You'll follow the same rotations as with the Mortefi team, but when you intro skill in with YINLIN, you'll basic attack 4 times, then use her Resonance skill. Afterwards, you'll heavy attack, and then use the second cast of her Resonance skill. Then use her Liberation. Afterwards, you'll basic attack 1 more time, and then trigger her Forte Circuit heavy attack before Echo skilling and swapping to Augusta. Augusta's best in slot Echo skill can be activated multiple times during a rotation, but its second cast can be difficult to fit in across her rotation, so you can occasionally swap to her during the animation of a sub-DPS character to quickly trigger its effect and then swap back to the sub-DPS. A final team that can work for Augusta is by using Phrolova as the sub-DPS. You'll follow the identical rotations to all of Augusta's other teams, but with Phrolova, you'll intro in, basic attack until an enhanced basic or skill is available, use one, then Echo skill and repeat this cycle with skill and basic attack chains until she has 6 notes on her Forte circuit. Then you'll enhanced heavy attack, Liberation, and then swap to Augusta to continue her rotation. This isn't the best use of Phrolova given her heavy synergy with multiple unique Echo skill casts across her team, but still provides some damage amplification for Augusta through Phrolova's outro skill. But this team would be viable, but loses a lot of its power since Augusta's second Liberation actually deletes Hecate from the field. But I wanted to note the rotation in case some people wanted to try it out. When it comes to other teams, Augusta unfortunately has some big hiccups when it comes to quick swap or dual DPS due to the nature of her outro skill providing majesty when its recipient uses an outro skill before it expires. When this outro expires on swap and you're swapping frequently, you need to be very precise in your timing across quick swap teams to fully leverage Augusta's kit. Since this is an early release guide made for the average player, we won't dive too much into her advanced mechanics for now. Since we covered Augusta's team rotation, it's time to talk about hers, and she has an incredibly simple baseline rotation that's very easy for beginners to figure out. After intro skilling in on Augusta, you'll have full prowess and will use an enhanced heavy attack, and then attack again or release the button to use its follow-up. From there, you'll use a resonance skill and then use another enhanced heavy attack and follow-up before activating Augusta's first liberation, using her enhanced skill attack chain, and then finishing off the rotation with her second liberation, 9 slashes, and then her final finisher, ending with her echo skill before swapping back to your support. If you're using Verdant Summit, you'll want to trigger her liberation right after intro skilling in to activate the full heavy attack damage buff, but then follow with the rest of the rotation as listed. Keep in mind that on your team's second rotation, you cannot swap off the recipient of Augusta's outro without losing her outro buff and her Majesty generation, so take great care to manage this properly. This is an early guide, so know that there might be ways to optimize Augusta's rotation further, so be on the lookout for more follow-up content like this if you're interested in new tech. At the end of the day, Augusta is one of the strongest DPS characters released in Wuthering Waves, while also being one of the most beginner and free-to-play friendly units, given how well she performs with some incredibly budget options like Mortefi. However, that beginner friendliness does come with some costs, as it's very difficult to pull off advanced mechanics like quick swap with how her kit is designed. In my opinion, she reigns with characters like Carlotta or Camellia with how affordably players can access a devastating amount of her potential. And if you're willing to spend the pulls to get her weapon or Jian's weapon, you can easily demolish content with 2 basically free units in Mortefi and VERINA, but can naturally upgrade with choices like Shorekeeper and Yuno in the future as well. With how unwieldy Electro's existing units can be with Zhang Liao's long rotation time and YINLIN's clunky kit, she's brought new life to the attribute that hasn't completely overshadowed other members of the roster. But if you already have plenty of other capable DPS units, she's far from a must-pull. But if you're a beginner to Wuwa, I can't recommend her enough. As always, if you enjoyed this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Peace out.